Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of China Focus, the podcast where we shine a focus on the folks, the everyday people, their unique experiences, and the vibrant tapestry of life across China. I'm your host, Robert Jean.
And I'm Ella.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into something truly mind-blowing that just swept across social media starting early July 2025. You probably heard about it, the Red Sister incident.
Oh, yeah.
It kicked off as this wild rumor, just exploded into national news and sparked, well, everything from shock and people mocking it to real anger and even some, deeper reflection.
He really did.
At first, it seemed pretty straightforward, maybe just bizarre. But when you start digging, like we're going to do today, you see it holds up a mirror to society, reveals some, frankly, uncomfortable truths about how we react to things that just don't fit the mold.
Absolutely. It's amazing how fast it took over the online world. The public reaction was just so intense. It really became this powerful lens reflecting these deep-seated public curiosities and anxieties. A real case study in how stories just spiral.
And what a story it started as. The first rumors going around were, they were pretty out there.
Wild, yeah.
People were talking about a Nanjing elder, supposedly 60 years old, male, but dressed as a woman. They called him Red Sister, or Old Redhead.
Mm-hmm.
And the claim was he'd had sexual encounters with, get this, over 1,000 men for more than a decade.
Right. That number was everywhere.
And as if that wasn't enough, he was supposedly secretly filming it all and sharing explicit videos online. I mean, the narrative was that this just shattered people's moral foundations.
Oh, completely. It was on every major platform. You could almost feel the atmosphere online. It was thick with gossip, fascination, but also some really strong moral judgment. The sheer scale of those initial claims, it just hooked everyone.
But then, this is where it gets really crucial. The official story. When the Nanjing police put out their statement on July 8th, it painted a very different picture, didn't it?
It really did. That police statement was key in sort of cutting through all that noise and speculation.
So what were the main points? How did they correct those first viral stories?
Well, first off, the person involved, Zhao Mumu, he's actually 38, not 60. That was a huge difference right there.
38, okay.
Big difference.
And he'd had encounters with multiple men, yes, but not thousands. That specific number, 1,691 partners, which was flying around, totally unconfirmed by the police.
Right, so multiple, not thousands. What else?
They were also clear it wasn't prostitution. He was impersonating a female, engaging in sex acts, and yes, secretly filming them. That part was true.
Okay.
And this point really seemed to land heavily in the public discussion. The police specifically mentioned he's not a local from Nanjing. He's an outsider.
It's almost like facts struggle to catch up once a really sensational story takes hold,
Exactly. The initial narrative sets the tone, and it's hard to shift.
Because even after the police clarified things, the conversation didn't just stop. It seemed to keep circling back to these deeper societal biases. It really exposed some raw nerves.
Let's unpack that. First, maybe gender identity and sexuality. A man dressed as a woman involved in same-sex acts that seemed to hit like a double taboo.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because you have this situation where, on the surface, homosexuality isn't criminalized anymore, maybe even seems tolerated in society.
Right.
But then something like this happens, and that tolerance, it just scratches off like cheap paint, as one source put it. Suddenly, you see all these comments equating homosexuality with being abnormal, diseased, even immoral.
Wow.
Yeah, this one individual, Zhao Mumu, he was almost instantly turned into this representative disgrace for the entire LGBTQ plus community. People made these totally absurd links, blaming him for high housing prices, low wages, just completely unrelated stuff.
That's incredible.
It really is. And it shows how his perceived sexual identity totally overshadowed the actual crime, the illegal filming and spreading of obscene material. The whole thing just became this absurd moral magnifying glass.
It really highlights how fragile that tolerance can be.
Okay, what about the ageism factor? That initial rumor, the 60-year-old man detail, it seemed to really ignite the public fury, maybe even more than the acts themselves. Why do you think that specific detail was such an explosion point?
That's a great question. It wasn't just about the sex, was it? It was the age. It seemed to violate this unspoken sexual aesthetic order that many people hold. Meaning sex in the popular imagination is supposed to be young, maybe beautiful. An older person's sexuality, especially a man's, is often seen as something uncomfortable, something to be hidden.
I see.
See, its public exposure feels like it's polluting public space. And then you had these other rumors layered on top, like him accepting milk or juicers as payment, or being a retired teacher. Totally fabricated stuff.
It's made up just to amplify the shock. Exactly. To amplify the shock and let people feel this sense of, moral superiority. It really shows how attitudes towards elderly sexuality are still pretty, primitive, stuck in shame and disgust. And people were so focused on that, they often ignored the actual crime of filming people without consent.
That's really unsettling. And then the obsession with numbers. That 1,691 men figure was like a bomb went off online. What was that all about?
It's so telling, isn't it? People weren't really debating the exact number. It wasn't about accuracy. No, it was more about whether the number itself could break their psychological tolerance limit. You actually saw discussions like, okay, would 100 partners be acceptable? Or 500?
Seriously?
Yeah. It revealed this weird fixation on sexual quantity as some kind of moral measuring stick, when really the legal issue is illegality, right? And the moral issue should be about consent, privacy,
right,
not how many partners. But for many, that number just became the symbol. A way to provoke maximum alarm, to draw lines, exclude people. It totally overshadowed the very serious crime of filming and distributing private videos without permission. It became about outrage, not legality.
A psychological line in the sand. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And finally, you mentioned the police highlighting he was an outsider, that regional prejudice element.
Yes, that little phrase, not a local, an outsider, seemed neutral maybe, but it carried a heavy subtext.
Which was?
Basically, hey, we here in Nanjing, we're civilized, we follow the law, this disgusting stuff. That was brought in by an outsider. Don't blame us, and don't blame Nanjing.
The not in my backyard defense.
Pretty much. It's a classic tactic, right? Create an exclusionary firewall, shift the blame away from any local issues or broader societal problems onto an individual, especially someone from a marginalized group or, an outsider. The city becomes the innocent victim.
Okay, this leads to maybe the most perplexing part for many people. Why did so many men engage with Red Sister? We heard reports of all sorts: fitness coaches, students, foreigners, even regulars. Some apparently good-looking.
Yeah.
Especially, why continue after realizing he was male? What could possibly explain that?
Yeah, that's the question everyone was asking. And the answer seems to be, it's complicated. There isn't just one reason.
Okay.
First, there was definitely initial deception. Reports say Red Sister wore masks, used that specific cutesy voice, the high-pitched, affected one.
Right, the VA.
Exactly. Wore long dresses, posed in certain ways, even had rules like no touching sometimes, all to keep up the illusion. Some younger guys apparently didn't realize until things were underway, asking things like, is that thing? Or why is it yellow?
So some were genuinely fooled. At least at first. What else?
Then there's this powerful cultural factor, the since I'm already here mentality. Bum for all, right?
Yeah, might as well.
Exactly. For some, once they'd made the trip, gone to the room, even if they discovered the truth, that feeling of, I came all this way, might have been enough to make them just go through with it.
Interesting. And you mentioned earlier he didn't charge money but took gifts.
Yes, the free factor.
Yeah.
That seems huge. No cash exchanged, but he'd ask for gifts, milk, cooking oil, maybe even small appliances.
Like payment in kind.
Sort of, but that free aspect likely lowered the bar significantly, made people less picky about appearance or even gender. It's almost like, people queuing for free eggs. The free part overrides other considerations.
Okay, what else? Some reports mention something unexpected, like maternal warmth.
Yeah, this was one of the more surprising angles. Some participants apparently described feeling cared for, almost unconditionally, receiving a kind of motherly warmth. And that Red Sister supposedly understood men better than women did, focused on technique, satisfaction, even offering after-sale service, like continuing oral acts post-ejaculation. It suggests maybe they found some unique connection or type of gratification there.
你输在哪里？今天我手把手教各位集美如何吃到优质的菜。首先，我不要房不要车，也不要彩礼，一个西瓜，一包纸巾，半桶花生油我就很满足。千万不要成为男孩眼中的拜金女，这点非常重要。第二，要给男人足够的情绪价值，哪怕3秒钟，都要夸他们很棒，提升他们的自信心是聪明女人必须掌握的技能。第三，要学会主动出击，有些集美因为面子不敢对心仪的男孩表白，其实哪怕对方再帅，他们饿了也会吃垃圾食品。第四，要么你特别有米，比如北京的爱庆哥哥， 吃的都是米其林顶级美食。关注红姐，你能学到更多知识。宝子们，现在学还不晚哦。
Wow. Okay. Anything else?
One more thing. The thrill element. The acts often happened in this pretty basic rented room, apparently near a busy street. For some, that contrasts the private act right near the public bustle. The risk of exposure might have created this sort of exhibitionist thrill.
So it's really a complex mix, not just simple attraction or deception. It's the forbidden, maybe psychological needs being met, the low barrier, maybe even boredom or curiosity.
Precisely. A whole cocktail of reasons, likely different for different individuals. It definitely makes you think about unmet desires or disconnects in more conventional interactions for some people.
Okay, so let's pivot back. While everyone was talking about the shock value, the morality, it's really important we focus on the actual concrete harms and the legal side of this. What were the real consequences?
Absolutely crucial. Legally, Zhao Momu was detained, facing charges for spreading obscene materials. Experts suggested the penalties could be serious, maybe up to 7 years in prison.
And potentially even more severe.
Potentially, yes. If it turned out he knowingly transmitted HIV through unprotected sex and caused severe harm, the penalties could theoretically be much harsher, even up to the death penalty in extreme cases under the law there.
And the public health aspect, there were rumors about HIV.
Right. There were specific alarming numbers thrown around online, like 11 victims or even 237 testing positive. Platforms like Douyin officially flagged those as misinformation.
So those numbers weren't confirmed.
No. But the incident did raise very real public health concerns about disease transmission. Health authorities, like the CDC, got involved. They urged anyone who had close contact to get tested, reminding everyone about the dangers of unprotected sex, especially if someone knows they're infected.
And critically, we can't forget the privacy violations. The men who were filmed without their knowledge or consent. They're victims here, too.
Absolutely vital point. Their most private moments were recorded and potentially shared. This led to what people call social death. For many of them, careers ruined, reputations destroyed, students, public servants, ordinary people, their lives turned upside down.
So they were victims of a serious crime against their privacy and dignity.
Definitely. And beyond the criminal aspect for Zhao, there's also civil liability, infringing on portrait rights, privacy rights. These men suffered real harm.
Taking a step back then, this whole incident, this twisted mirror, as you called it,
Yeah.
what does it really show us about maybe the broader human condition or the challenges we face today?
It's quite revealing, isn't it? It starkly exposes those societal prejudices we talked about against LGBTQ plus people, the elderly, outsiders. It shows this collective, psychological distortion that can happen when society confronts something different.
How so?
Instead of sticking to facts, legal principles, focusing on the actual harm, there's often this rush to find, superiority and pleasure in judging others, in witnessing the collapse of others. It also touches on these complex sexual dynamics. For some men, maybe the ease, the specific kind of non-judgmental service Red Sister offered, met needs unfulfilled elsewhere. It echoes these broader conversations about, say, modern sexual repression, or maybe a disconnect between physical desire and emotional connection in conventional relationships.
And the way it just took off.
The way it became this huge national moral ritual, rather than just being treated primarily as a criminal investigation with victims who needed protection. That's a powerful lesson in itself. About moral panic, about how quickly judgment can replace reason.
So ultimately, this bizarre story serves as this really unique window into complex desires, deep-seated biases, and maybe underscores the urgent need for critical thinking, for empathy, especially now when information spreads so fast.
So wrapping up, what does this all mean for you listening?
The Red Sister story, it's more than just sensational headlines. It really is a reflection. How do we consume news? How quickly do we judge? How do we navigate connection, desire, privacy in today's world?
Right.
It really pushes us to look past that initial shock, doesn't it? Ask tougher questions about fairness, about protecting privacy, about finding empathy, even when something seems completely alien.
And it brings up that big question. How do we build a society that can actually tolerate difference? One that focuses on the real harm done, instead of just getting swept up in moral panic and prejudice.
Yeah.
It probably comes down to more open discussion, really thinking critically about what we hear and being willing to try and understand perspectives that aren't our own.
Well, we hope this deep dive gave you some food for thought, maybe a few of those aha moments. Of course, this conversation doesn't end here.
Not at all.
We really want to hear what you think. What questions did this raise for you? Please do interact with us. Leave your comments below. If you found this insightful, give us a like. It really helps. And definitely subscribe to the show so you don't miss our future deep dives. Your support is what lets us keep digging into these important topics for you.